Guys, and welcome back. So today we are doing our practice FRQ for our Unit 3 test. So I'm just going to go over the rubric with you really quick. This is a little bit different from how we've normally done it, where you post it in a um, discussion post and then the rubric pops up. I just decided to do it a little bit differently, and we'll see how we like it and if it works out a little bit better for us. So our first question here, A, says comparing population growth rates. So you get 1 point here for naming country X as the one with the largest rate of population growth. So if we go back, let me actually go back. I have two of them open here. So A says, which of the three countries has the largest rate of population growth and which one has the smallest rate? Explain. So this is worth 3 points total. So if we go back into our answer here, you can get 1 point for naming X as the country with the largest rate of population. So if we look up here, X is our largest rate of population because it does have the widest base. And then also, Y is the country with the smallest growth / replacement level fertility. And again, here is country Y, and we can tell that because it's got the most narrow base. So we have large population growth here in country X, and then smaller population growth / declining growth in country Y. So that's 2 points. So if you correctly identify those, you can get 2 points. And then you can get 1 point for explaining why country X has the largest growth and or why Y has the smallest growth. You only need one explanation. So just like when they grade the things that you list, they'll only grade the first explanation first. So this is an example, but generally your explanation should include something like this. So it says a relatively large segment of the population of country X is currently in their pre-reproductive or reproductive years and will soon begin having children. In contrast, the pre-reproductive cohorts in country Y are about equal in size to the reproductive and post-reproductive cohorts. And things just to look for that you could also mention, the base of the pyramid shape is indicative of a large rate of population. You could compare your cohort ages of the lower cohorts. And then a description of the histogram itself can't really earn credit. So you can't just say, oh, X has a wider base. You have to also explain what that means. So you would need to explain that the wide base indicates a large number of babies being born, which will then grow up to have more children, and then vice versa for country Y. So let's go ahead and look at B. So these are infant mortality rates. So question B asks, compare the infant mortality rates that are likely in countries X and Y and explain your reasoning. So here we've got our developing country, and then here we have our developed country in Y. So X would be something more like Nigeria, whereas Y would be something more like the United States. So you can get 1 point earned for saying that X would have a higher infant mortality. And then you can get 1 point for the explanation. So we're up to 5 total points here because we can get 2 in B. So examples that could be accepted. So if you have any of these, that would be good enough. So larger drop in population from one cohort to the next, little change in cohorts in the histogram of country Y. Country Y is probably more industrialized or developing country, which means there's better drinking water, better nutrition, better health care, better education of women. And then in that developing country, in country X, you are more likely to have contaminated drinking water, poor nutrition, poor health care, few or no educated opportunities for women. And all of those can lead to higher infant mortality rates. This one's probably, you guys are probably doing pretty good on this one. This one's a little bit easier. So C says, describe the changes in both the birth rate and the death rate for a country making the transition from a pre-industrial society to an industrial society. So if we go back to our rubric here, so you can get 1 point earned for the pre-industrial phase. The term is not necessary, you just have to describe it. You just have to tell that the birth rate and the death rates are both initially high. You can get 1 point for the transitional phase, so the birth rates remain high and the death rates decline, and then you can earn another point for the industrial phase, which is where your birth rate decline and approaches the death rate. You can also mention the post-industrial phase as well with as an explanation. So for this one, you're basically just describing what happens in each phase of the demographic transition. So you're just kind of describing what's happening to those birth and those death rates. This would be an area where if you needed to draw it out, so like if you needed to draw a demographic transition to help you kind of visualize it and explain it, that would be okay. They won't accept a drawing, but it can help you kind of explain your reasoning. And then D, finally, it says describe one incentive that the government of a country could offer its citizens that would favor a reduction in the growth rate of its population. Explain how it would work and describe a possible drawback. So this one is a little bit more involved. So you can get 1 point for the description. Um, and then also, where do the other points come from? Let's see. Oh, you have to explain how it works and then also explain a drawback as well. So those are where your 3 points come from. So examples of incentives would be free or more accessible government subsidized family planning. So things like Planned Parenthood would be an example of a real world example of an incentive. Economic rewards or penalties. So these have to be linked to specific examples. So payment for sterilization, eliminating income tax deductions, free healthcare benefits, free higher education for women or child. And again, you only have to have one of these. So any of these are possibilities. Monetary bonus, free counseling, government subsidized housing, if you have less than 2 children. Bonus at the end of the year if a woman remains under a single child limit. This is kind of sad. It's a little bit sad, but these are incentives. And if we notice, most of these incentives come kind of in the form of a monetary gain. So you are incentivized not to have children because you can make some money, which is always good. Raising the legal marriage age, and specific examples with explanations like China, paid leave to women for fertility operations, monthly subsidy to single child family, again, money. All of these are monetary. And I will post this rubric so that you guys can read this more in depth. Um, I don't think it's necessary for me to read every single one of these to you because you guys are perfectly capable of that. But just going through these. So examples of incentives that are not accepted would be decrease in immigration, because the question refers to the current citizens of a country, so don't mention leaving or gaining citizens in terms of immigration. Okay, so you also need an explanation of the example as well. So you provided the example, and then for your second point, you would need to explain how it would work. So these are just a couple of examples. So government provides free education for mothers that have less than 2 children. This enables the mother to get a better job and make more money. Studies show that women have higher education and better jobs. They tend to have fewer children, thus lowering the population growth rate. So you would need to explain how the incentive works and then why that incentive that was given would actually lead to an overall reduction in the population. And again, I will link this rubric so you can use this as well. And then some examples of these drawbacks would be cultural social issues, interference with religious teaching, children being punished for the actions of their parents. What else is new, right? Fewer workers to support an aging population. That's one we definitely talked about. The cost of programs to government and citizens, right? So typically this would come in the form of taxes, so you'd be paying more in taxes. Reduced tax revenues, rewards likely to attract people who already have all the children that they want. So basically, if you have kids already and then the government is like, oh, you can have this money if you just stop having kids. And the parents are like, well, hey, we already have all the kids we want, so let's just make this money. It's just an um, extra incentive for them, and they weren't even planning on having kids in the first place. Um, child dies, so this is going to be, and this is tied, it has to be tied back to the incentive. So this example of this would be the selective abortions in China, where people intentionally get rid of female children, which is very sad. Consequences and punishment for multiple births, so like twins. So we can't control, right? Sometimes if we have twins or even triplets, so you might be planning on sticking to that incentive and say, oh, we're going to have only one kid, but then you wind up having twins. And so if you are taxed for that, that's something that you really can't control. So that could be a negative drawback as well. Oh, and then an increase in STDs, unwanted pregnancy that may accompany free birth control. That's an interesting one. Basically, what it's saying is that if you have access to birth control and it's free, you might not necessarily take the proper precautions. So it might lead to an increase in promiscuity. And then also that could lead to an increase in STDs. That's a very interesting one. It's not one I would necessarily choose because for the most part, an increase in contraceptives and having free access to contraceptives is a good thing. But it would be an accepted drawback. So I'm going to post this rubric so that you guys can review it. There are 10 possible points. You can make sure. 3, 6, 9. Is there really 9? I think I'm missing one somewhere. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11. Okay, so there's 11 possible points. So when you guys add up your score and total it and put it in that reflection, just make sure you're doing it out of 11. The maximum you can get like on the actual test is 10, but since there are 11 possible points here, when you tell me how many points you scored, you can score it out of 11. I will be posting the rubric as well so that you can just see it yourself, but if you have any questions, let me know.